So for our first video here, we're going to actually go through a process of how to take Backtrack for R2 and download the VMware image and of course resize it and then make some significant changes to essentially build what is going to, I guess, be the ultimate pen testing VM. And I say that because it's a good base to build upon. There's some things that I like to do to change it. So we had a conversation on the podcast one night, and we were just kind of talking and said that well, it'd be nice to know if what other people do. And so I decided I would go ahead and kind of record how I go about doing it. So essentially what I do is go to the backtrack-linux.org website to the downloads, and you can see that you have a Backtrack for ISO and then a Backtrack for VM. And so what I'm going to do is download the VM and then go through and tell it that I want to save it and where I want to put it. And so I'm just going to, for just shits and giggles, just kind of throw it at the root and say OK. And then it's going to go through and it's going to begin seeding and downloading and that type of stuff. So what we'll do is we're going to pause the video here and then we're going to let it finish. Okay, so we're back to where we've downloaded and extracted out our image. And so what I've essentially got is just the VM extracted in a directory. I've opened up the VMX and I can go through and I can edit the settings on the virtual machine. And essentially this is what it comes with native. It comes by default with 768 megs of memory allocated, one processor. So obviously I can handle up to 4 processors and I'm sorry, 8 processors, 8 core. And then the disk drive, which is really what I want to focus on right now, because the memory and the other stuff I can go ahead and adjust. But so there's essentially 2 options. You can run a command line version of the VMware vDisk Manager, which will allow you to be able to resize it from command line. However, something that's relatively simple to do is that you can go into the actual virtual machine settings and you can edit it locally. You used to have to use the VMware converter, but obviously with the later iterations of VMware Workstation you don't have to. So I can go into utilities. Of course I get the option to defrag, expand, or compact. So what I want to choose is obviously to expand it. Now a lot of people would say, listen, 20 gigs is plenty. I like to have plenty of room for some movement, so I change it to 40. And all that's going to do is expand the size of my VMDK. Now it's not going to pre-allocate it. All it's going to do is just say that, you know, essentially the same thing. The disk was expanded, but now I need to go repartition the disk and expand the system files. So for the guest. And so one of the things that I like to do is at this point is you can use, there's a lot of like Hiron's boot disk, a lot of boot disk out there, but you can also use the Gparted ISO to go ahead and to basically repartition your system partitions. So at this point, what what I want to do is click on my CD drive and change it over, select my ISO image, which I'm just going to paste in, and tell it to connect that power on. Now, if this had been the first time that I powered this on, I would get a warning message that would come up asking me if I moved or copied. Obviously, I would select I copied. In this case, I've already powered this up once, so I really don't have to worry much about it. But essentially, it's going to boot up. I've already selected and changed my boot order within the BIOS, which is why I know that it's already been booted up. For this video. Essentially what I'll do is now boot right into the GNOME partition editor, and so with that I'm able to go in and boot it up, and of course it's scanning all the partitions, and it doesn't take that long to come up, but essentially I will get the option to change the key map or not to. In this case I will select not to, so you do not want to touch the key map. Unless you're using something else for a keyboard, then obviously that would probably be something that would be selected. But obviously we're doing this via VM, so it's handling all of that for us. I live in the US, so I'm going to choose US English, which is 33. You would choose your appropriate language via the number listed in the list there. And I'm not going to choose, in this case I'm just going to tell it I want it just to run StartX and use it Gparted automatically. I can run Force Video, which allows me to configure it and change the resolution. I choose not to, so I'm just going to tell it to boot up. And then I get Gparted loaded. So as you can see here, we have our partition pulled up. And essentially what we have is an extended partition that is 894 meg, and the Linux swap partition stuck inside that, which is 894 meg as well. What I want to do is I want to delete this, the swap space, and I want to delete the extended partition, thus leaving me a 19 gig allocated ext3 partition and a 20 gig unallocated partition. So then what I can do is I can simply go into here and I can select move and resize and just pull this over and leave, I don't know, somewhere around like that, just whatever I want to put on the ass end of it to and I can even move that up to about like around 2 gig or something like that, and just say actually it's a little bit less than 2 gig, but I can put it somewhere right in there and just say okay, that's fine. And essentially what that's left me is a 2 gig unallocated space. It's resized my ext3 partition from 20 to 38, and then I have 2 gig unallocated. So then I'm going to create a new partition, and you simply right click, by the way, on each one of the partitions to say what you want to do. So then I'm going to click on the unallocated space. Right clicking will give me the new button. I can then say that I want a extended partition, and I'm going to say add, and then that leaves me still unallocated 2 gig, and then I'm going to say right clicking and saying new. I'm going to say I want this to be a Linux swap partition, say add, and I am done. So essentially what I've done is just moved the extended and the Linux swap partition into my newly allocated 20 gig, leaving me 18 gig free. So out of that I can say I've got a 38 gig partition, 7 or basically 8 gig is used, and so that leaves me that. Now apply all of this, and it's going to go through. Now this is the same thing. You can do this with Partition Magic and anything else, but it's pretty much the same thing. Some of them give you the option, of course you have the option here to start backwards and allocate from the back end forward, but essentially all I wanted to do. Now I will tell you this, I could have left it alone and left this so that the ext3 was just about was just the small size, the original size. So it was 19.12 gig. I could have left that and just created a partition on the back end. But what I want to do is I want to keep it all together and just make sure that it all flows well. And the reason why is because if I want to add more partition or more space onto this, I can do it, and then I don't have overlap, and then I don't have this extended and Linux swap partition kind of stuck there in the middle. So if I keep it on the end, I've always got it where I want it. But essentially this is going to go through this process, and what I will do is I will pause this for now. When we get back in, we will take a look at it and see what it's doing, and go from there. Okay, so we are done, and it says that all the operations have completed successfully, and you can see that essentially what we did was we deleted the extended 894 meg partition. We grew dev SDA1 from 19.12 gig to 38 gig. We created a new extended partition of 2 gig, and then we created the Linux swap space. So that actually shows us everything, and so from there we will let it rescan, and we will go and we will quit this. Simply go in and turn off the VM, which should allow us to edit the virtual machine settings once again. I'm going to switch this back over to a physical drive because I don't want to boot to it, and then I'm going to power on the VM, and then we'll take a look at the partitions and what we've got. And of course this is pretty much pristine other than just making those changes. Haven't run anything, no updates, no nothing, so it's going to be just a normal backtrack that you're used to seeing, and then we will go from there. So I'm going to pause this for right now while this is all loading and booting, and then when we come up we should have everything mounted, or at least be able to log in and show you the mount points. Okay, so through the magic of time, I guess we can go ahead and show you that the boot has come up. We're at the login screen, so we're going to enter root and tour, And hopefully I didn't fat finger it. And we're going to start up um, the GUI. And like I said, they've done a really good job with this. There's just some minor tweaks that I would like to change, and some things that we're going to add to kind of enhance the capabilities of this. And so, as you can see, it's pretty much a pristine installation. So we're going to start up a little shell here, and we're going to show you as the screen just kicks into the overdrive there. So we're going to show you uh, the way we have it allocated, and so you can see that we have all of the partitions, and shows that we have about 29 gig available on SDA1. It is possible to just create another partition. So you could go in and essentially, if I were to take this directory, a lot of times what I've done in the past is taken this entire directory and moved all of it over to a new mount point, then mounted it up separately. So I can show you a different way that it was done. Of course, this was done with QParted, and this one was done with Partition Magic. And so essentially, if you go through and you look at it, it's a little bit different. So I can show you that I've created a completely separate partition on SDA3 where I've mounted the entire pen test directory over there. Essentially, it gives me the same thing. I'm just left with this, and so it's a different way of doing it. Obviously, with QParted, I can slide or move the entire root partition on dev SDA1 to expand the whole available space. With Partition Magic, you can't do that, or I couldn't in the one that I had. It wouldn't allow me to. So essentially, the only thing I could do is create a new partition. Either way, you can do this, and this would be the same thing if you were to create it on the end of the drive and didn't want to move stuff around. On the one that we're messing with, obviously, it's the same exact thing that we're doing here. We're just expanding it out, so I don't have to move anything. I don't have to change anything. It's a heck of a lot easier. So that ends this portion of the video. What we're going to do is go through and we're going to customize some stuff into the second video. So for references, you can go to backtrack-linux.org/downloads, and for gparted, you can go to gparted at SourceForge. And so, as always, this is brought to you by the ISD Podcast. We record Monday through Friday, weeknights, 8 p.m. You can reach us on Freenode at pound ISD Podcast. Twitter is at ISD Podcast, and the live stream is available off of Security Tactics. You can listen to replays or the stream live as it happens at 8 p.m.